In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where stars burned with an otherworldly glow and planets floated like forgotten dreams, there existed a species so advanced that their technology seemed indistinguishable from magic. The Zenthari, as they were known to those who dared whisper their name, had ruled over vast swaths of space for millennia. Their queen, Velithra, was no ordinary ruler. Her presence commanded respect, fear, and awe in equal measure. She was not just a monarch but a living embodiment of her people's dominance, her bioluminescent skin shimmering like liquid starlight under the dim glow of alien moons. Velithra's reign had been one of conquest and control, expanding her empire through both diplomacy and destruction. Her voice carried weight among her kind, capable of inspiring loyalty or striking terror into the hearts of enemies. Yet, despite her power, she possessed a curiosity about the universe that few understood. It was this insatiable thirst for knowledge that led her on countless expeditions beyond the borders of her domain, seeking out new worlds and technologies to add to her ever-growing arsenal. Little did she know that this hunger would soon lead her down a path fraught with peril. On the human side of the cosmos, Captain Ryland Drake stood as a beacon of resilience amidst chaos. A decorated officer of the United Earth Fleet, Ryland was known for his unorthodox methods and razor-sharp instincts. With piercing blue eyes that seemed to see straight through deception and a jawline chiseled by years of grit, he inspired both admiration and frustration among his crew. His ship, the Eclipse Vanguard, was more than just a vessel. It was home to a ragtag team of misfits, each handpicked for their unique skills and unwavering loyalty. The Vanguard wasn't your typical military cruiser. It bore scars from battles fought across light years, its hull patched together with salvaged materials and ingenuity. But beneath its battered exterior lay cutting-edge tech scavenged from derelict ships and black market deals, a testament to Ryland's resourcefulness. He thrived on challenges, always pushing boundaries, whether it meant defying orders or venturing into territories marked unexplored on star charts. For Ryland, every mission was personal, driven by a desire to protect humanity at all costs, even if it meant bending the rules. It began with a faint blip on the long-range scanners, a signal unlike anything the Eclipse Vanguard had encountered before. At first, it seemed like cosmic interference, the kind of anomaly you chalk up to faulty equipment or solar flares. But when Lieutenant Kira Solis, the ship's science officer, ran diagnostics, her face lit up with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Captain," she called out, her voice tinged with urgency, "you're going to want to see this." Ryland strode over to the console, his boots clanging against the metal floor. On the screen was an energy signature pulsating rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. It didn't match any known human or alien technology. "What is it?" he asked, leaning closer. Kira hesitated, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's big, and moving fast. Whatever it is, it's heading toward us at sublight speed." Before Ryland could respond, the bridge lights flickered, and the entire ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, red warning lights bathing the room in an ominous glow. "Report," Ryland barked, gripping the railing as another tremor rocked the Vanguard. "It's a tractor beam," shouted Ensign Taro, the helmsman, his hands flying over the controls in a futile attempt to break free. "We're being pulled into some kind of cloaked structure." Ryland's mind raced. Cloaked structures weren't unheard of, but they usually belonged to the Zenthari, the very species humanity had avoided engaging directly due to their overwhelming technological superiority. If this was them, things were about to get complicated. "Divert all power to engines and shields," he ordered. "Kira, can you pinpoint the source?" "I'm trying, but..." Kira's sentence cut off as the view screen flared to life, revealing a massive, insectoid vessel looming ahead. Its surface was jagged and metallic, adorned with glowing veins of energy that pulsed in sync with a mysterious signal. The sight sent a chill down everyone's spine. Without warning, the Vanguard lurched forward, dragged inexorably toward the alien craft. Ryland clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. Whatever awaited them inside that behemoth, it wasn't going to be friendly. When the Eclipse Vanguard finally came to a halt within the bowels of the alien ship, the silence aboard was deafening. No one moved, each member of the crew frozen in anticipation, or dread. Then came the hiss of airlocks disengaging, followed by the eerie hum of what sounded like organic machinery awakening. Ryland's instincts screamed at him to act, but he held his ground, waiting. Moments later, the ship's external cameras revealed their captors, towering insectoid beings with exoskeletons glinting like polished obsidian. They moved with precision, their segmented limbs clicking softly against the metallic floor. At their head stood a figure unmistakably regal, even among these creatures, Queen Vailithra herself. Her presence was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, her elongated form radiated authority, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with intelligence and calculation. Around her neck hung a crystalline pendant that pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of the earlier signal. She stepped forward, her movements fluid yet deliberate, flanked by 2 hulking guards whose mandibles clicked ominously. Through a translator device embedded in her armor, her voice boomed across the bridge, resonating through the speakers aboard the Vanguard. "You have trespassed into sacred territory," she declared, her tone sharp but measured. "Your ignorance will not save you." Rylan squared his shoulders, stepping into view of the camera feed. "We mean no harm," he said firmly, though his grip tightened imperceptibly on the railing behind him. "We detected unusual readings and followed standard protocol for investigation." Vailithra tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "Protocol does not grant amnesty here, human. You are intruders, and thus, you forfeit your freedom." With a wave of her clawed hand, the transmission ended abruptly, plunging the bridge back into tense silence. Minutes stretched into hours as the crew waited, unsure of what fate awaited them. When the containment field shimmered to life around them, Rylan realized they'd been transported, not via traditional means, but seemingly dissolved and reassembled molecule by molecule. The chamber they now occupied was vast, its walls lined with bioluminescent panels that cast an unsettling greenish hue. Chains of unknown material snaked around Vailithra's wrists and ankles, binding her to a central platform suspended above the floor. Despite her predicament, her posture remained defiant, her gaze burning with fury and resolve. As Rylan approached cautiously, flanked by Kira and Taro, Vailithra's eyes locked onto him. "You dare look upon me as though I am weak?" she spat, venom lacing her words. "This indignity will not go unpunished." Rylan raised his hands placatingly, though his stance betrayed readiness for action. "We didn't bring you here," he replied evenly. "But if we've crossed paths, maybe we can help each other." For a moment, disbelief flickered across her face, quickly masked by disdain. Help? From humans? Preposterous. Still, there was something beneath her bravado, a flicker of desperation that hadn't been there before. Rylan noticed it immediately. Before Rylan could press further, the chamber doors slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing another group of Zenthari warriors. These ones were different, larger, bulkier, their armor adorned with jagged spines that bristled with latent energy. Leading them was a figure whose sheer size dwarfed even Vailithra. His exoskeleton gleamed with iridescent hues, and his antennae twitched erratically, giving him an air of barely contained aggression. This was General Zyrax, Vailithra's former second-in-command and now her captor. Zyrax stomped into the chamber, his claws scraping against the metallic floor. "Traitor," he growled, fixing Vailithra with a glare that could curdle plasma. "Your obsession with lesser species has brought ruin upon us all." Vailithra sneered, her chains rattling as she strained against them. "You dare call me traitor? Your ambition blinds you, Zyrax. You think destroying our legacy will make you strong? You are nothing but a coward hiding behind brute force." The tension between them crackled like static electricity. Rylan exchanged a glance with Kira, who looked torn between fascination and alarm. "They've been fighting internally," Kira whispered. "This isn't just about us, it's civil war." Rylan nodded grimly. Turning back to address the volatile scene unfolding before him, he spoke carefully. "General Zyrax," he began, drawing the creature's attention. "We're not aligned with either side. We stumbled into this situation accidentally. If there's a way to resolve this peacefully—" Zyrax let out a guttural laugh, shaking his head. "Peaceful? Humans speak of peace while wielding weapons stolen from dead civilizations. Do not insult my intelligence." Behind Zyrax, one of the warriors shifted uncomfortably, exchanging a subtle glance with another. Rylan caught the exchange and filed it away, a potential fracture in Zyrax's ranks. Meanwhile, Vailithra seized the moment to interject. "Enough posturing, Zyrax," she snapped, her voice cutting through the tension. "If you wish to execute me, do so now. Or better yet, allow these humans to witness your cowardice firsthand." Zyrax's mandibles clacked dangerously, his tail whipping behind him like a whip ready to strike. "Silence, wretch. Your games end here." He turned sharply toward Rylan. "Take your pathetic crew and leave. This matter concerns only Zenthari." But Rylan wasn't about to walk away, not when lives hung in the balance. "With respect, General," he countered, "we're already involved. And judging by what I've seen, staying might actually help avoid further bloodshed." At this, Zyrax froze, his gaze narrowing suspiciously. For a brief moment, the room fell silent, the weight of Rylan's words hanging heavy in the air. Then, without warning, the general lunged forward, his claws extended, and everything erupted into chaos. The sudden movement sent shockwaves rippling through the chamber. Zyrax's advance was swift and brutal, forcing Rylan and his team to scatter. Taro ducked behind a nearby console, pulling out a compact EMP device from his belt. "I can disable their systems temporarily," he shouted over the din, "but it'll fry ours too." "Do it," Rylan barked, diving to avoid a swipe from one of Zyrax's underlings. As Taro activated the device, a pulse of electromagnetic energy surged outward, momentarily stunning the Zenthari warriors. Their glowing exoskeletons dimmed, and several staggered, disoriented. Seizing the opportunity, Rylan sprinted toward Vailithra, who watched the chaos unfold with a mixture of surprise and reluctant admiration. "You're insane," she muttered as he reached her. "What do you hope to achieve?" "Survival for both of us," Rylan replied tersely, examining the chains binding her. They were made of some sort of adaptive alloy, shifting and tightening whenever pressure was applied. Thinking quickly, he pulled out a small laser cutter from his utility belt. "Hold still." Vailithra rolled her eyes but complied, leaning back slightly to give him space. Behind them, Kira fired off bursts from her plasma pistol, keeping the recovering Zenthari at bay. "Hurry up, Captain," she yelled, narrowly dodging a retaliatory blast. Just as Rylan managed to sever one of the chains, Zyrax regained his footing, shaking off the effects of the EMP. His roar echoed through the chamber, reverberating off the walls. "You dare defy me!" he thundered, charging once more. Rylan cursed under his breath, working faster. Finally, the last chain snapped, freeing Vailithra. She wasted no time springing into action, her movements surprisingly graceful despite her size. With a powerful kick, she sent one of Zyrax's soldiers sprawling. Another tried to flank her, only to be met with a burst of bioluminescent energy from her pendant, which sent him crashing into the wall. Meanwhile, Rylan joined Kira, firing off precise shots to keep the remaining warriors occupied. "Taro, status," he called out. "Shields are holding, but barely," Taro responded, frantically rerouting power to critical systems. "And I think I fried half the sensors." Suddenly, Vailithra appeared beside them, her expression fierce. "There's an escape route through the maintenance tunnels," she said urgently. "Follow me." "No tricks?" Rylan asked, skepticism evident in his tone. She smirked, though there was little humor in it. "Would you rather stay here and die?" "Point taken." Without hesitation, Rylan signaled for his team to fall back, following Vailithra as she led them through a narrow hatch hidden beneath a panel. The corridor beyond was dimly lit, the walls slick with condensation. It smelled faintly of ozone and decay, an unsettling combination that made everyone uneasy. As they navigated the labyrinthine passageways, Vailithra occasionally paused to inspect junction boxes or input commands into control panels. Each time, the path ahead seemed to clear marginally, allowing them to move forward. "How do you know where we're going?" Kira asked suspiciously after one such stop. "This ship used to belong to my fleet," Vailithra replied curtly. "I designed parts of it myself." That revelation earned a low whistle from Taro. "Guess you really don't mess around, huh?" Ignoring the comment, Vailithra pressed onward, her steps quick and purposeful. Behind them, the distant sounds of pursuit grew louder, Zyrax and his forces were closing in. Every so often, a blast would ricochet off the walls, forcing the group to duck or accelerate. The adrenaline coursing through their veins kept exhaustion at bay, but Rylan knew they couldn't keep this pace forever. Finally, they emerged into a larger chamber, dominated by a massive engineering core humming with raw power. In the center stood a circular platform surrounded by conduits and cables, glowing faintly with the same crystalline energy as Velathra's pendant. She approached it, her expression softening briefly. "This is it," she murmured. "The heart of the ship. What does it do?" Rylan asked, eyeing the setup warily. "It's a quantum resonance generator," Velathra explained. "Capable of opening wormholes, destabilizing enemy vessels, you name it. But it requires a catalyst." She tapped her pendant meaningfully. Realization dawned on Rylan. "So why haven't you used it already?" "Because using it improperly could destroy us all," she shot back. "I need your help to recalibrate it safely." Before Rylan could respond, the chamber doors exploded inward, sending shards of metal flying. Zyrax stormed in, flanked by his remaining warriors. "Foolish queen," he snarled, raising a weapon that crackled with lethal energy. "Did you think you could escape?" Velathra straightened, her demeanor shifting from desperate to commanding. "Enough, Zyrax. Let me use the generator, and I'll ensure safe passage for these humans. Continue this madness, and none of us will leave alive." Zyrax hesitated, his weapon wavering slightly. For a fleeting moment, doubt flickered across his face, but then it hardened into resolve. "Lies," he growled. "You seek only to preserve yourself." From behind, Kira fired a distraction shot, buying Rylan precious seconds to formulate a plan. Whispering instructions to Taro, who nodded grimly, Rylan turned to Velathra. "Do what you need to do," he said firmly. "We'll hold them off." She hesitated, her multifaceted eyes locking onto his. There was gratitude there, buried beneath layers of pride and suspicion. "You may regret trusting me," she warned. "Probably," Rylan admitted with a wry grin. "But we're running out of options." With that, Velathra turned her full attention to the generator, her fingers moving deftly across its interface. Around her, the air shimmered with increasing intensity, the hum growing louder until it vibrated through the very bones of everyone present. Meanwhile, Rylan and his team formed a defensive perimeter, trading fire with Zyrax's forces. Plasma bolts zipped past, narrowly missing vital components of the generator. One stray shot grazed Rylan's arm, eliciting a sharp intake of breath, but he gritted his teeth and kept firing. Just as Zyrax broke through the line, lunging directly for Velathra, the generator erupted in a cascade of light. A swirling vortex materialized above the platform, its edges crackling with unstable energy. "Now!" Velathra shouted, grabbing Rylan's uninjured arm and yanking him toward the portal. One by one, the group leapt into the maelstrom, leaving Zyrax roaring in fury as the chamber collapsed around him. Whether they'd escaped to safety or jumped straight into oblivion remained to be seen, but survival had never been guaranteed anyway. The vortex twisted and churned, a kaleidoscope of colors and sensations that defied logic. Rylan felt as though every atom in his body was being stretched across the cosmos, only to be violently reassembled moments later. When the disorienting journey finally ended, he stumbled onto solid ground, gasping for air as his vision swam back into focus. Around him, his team lay sprawled, equally dazed but alive. Velathra stood nearby, her bioluminescent aura flickering faintly, evidence of the immense energy she'd expended to stabilize their escape. They were no longer aboard the Zenthari vessel, or any ship, for that matter. Instead, they found themselves on a desolate moon, its surface littered with jagged rocks and craters. A blood-red sky loomed overhead, pierced by twin suns casting an eerie glow over the barren landscape. The air was thin but breathable, though it carried an acrid tang that made Kira wrinkle her nose. "Where are we?" Taro asked groggily, pushing himself up from the ground. His voice echoed strangely, as if the emptiness around them amplified sound unnaturally. "A safe haven," Velathra replied, her tone clipped. She turned to survey the area, her multifaceted eyes scanning for threats. "For now." Rylan straightened, wincing at the pain in his injured arm. He glanced at the Queen, suspicion creeping back into his thoughts. "You said you'd ensure our safety. This doesn't exactly scream sanctuary." Vailithra shot him a sharp look, her mandibles clicking softly. "Would you prefer returning to Zyrax's tender mercies? Or perhaps floating aimlessly in deep space? Be grateful I brought us somewhere survivable." Before Rylan could retort, Kira interrupted, pointing toward the horizon. "Look!" she exclaimed. In the distance, half buried beneath layers of crimson dust, rose the skeletal remains of what appeared to be an ancient structure. Its towering spires jutted upward like broken bones, encrusted with crystalline growths that shimmered faintly even under the dim light of the twin suns. "That wasn't here before," Taro murmured, pulling out his scanner. The device hummed to life, analyzing the structure. After a moment, he frowned. "It's giving off readings similar to the quantum resonance generator. But older. Much older." Vailithra stiffened visibly, her posture rigid. For the first time since their escape, uncertainty flickered across her face. "Impossible," she muttered. "This place shouldn't exist anymore." "What do you mean?" Rylan demanded, stepping closer. "Do you know what this is?" Her gaze lingered on the ruins, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and measured. "It is, or was, a relic of my people. Long before I ruled, the Zenthari discovered these ruins during one of our earliest expeditions. They called it the Nexus Vault, a repository of knowledge left behind by a civilization far greater than ours. But it vanished centuries ago, erased from existence after complications arose." "Complications?" Kira pressed, her curiosity piqued. "What kind of complications?" Vailithra hesitated, clearly reluctant to elaborate. "Let's just say not all knowledge is meant to be uncovered. And those who sought to wield it paid dearly." Her words hung heavy in the air, carrying an unspoken warning. Despite her ominous tone, Rylan couldn't ignore the potential significance of the site. If the Nexus Vault truly housed advanced alien technology, it could tip the scales in humanity's favor against adversaries like Zyrax, or worse. "We need to check it out," he said firmly. "If there's anything inside that can help us level the playing field, we can't afford to pass it up." Kira nodded in agreement, already adjusting her scanner settings. "I'll map the layout while we move. We should prioritize areas emitting the strongest energy signatures." Taro sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Great. Another death trap waiting to swallow us whole. Why does this always happen to us?" Ignoring his complaint, Rylan turned to Vailithra. "Are you coming, or do we go alone?" Her response was immediate and cutting. "You think I'd let you wander blindly into something this dangerous? Lead the way, human. Just don't blame me when your ignorance gets you killed." With that, the unlikely group set off toward the ruins, their footsteps crunching against the brittle terrain. As they drew closer, the crystalline structures embedded in the walls began to pulse faintly, reacting to their presence. Each step felt heavier, as though the very air resisted their intrusion. By the time they reached the entrance, a massive archway adorned with intricate carvings, they were all on edge. "This feels wrong," Taro whispered, glancing nervously at the shadows pooling within the doorway. "Like we're walking into someone else's grave." "Maybe we are," Kira replied, her voice barely audible. "But graves hold secrets too." Rylan exchanged a glance with Vailithra, whose expression had grown increasingly grim. Whatever awaited them inside, neither of them doubted it would test their resolve, and possibly their survival. The interior of the Nexus Vault was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsating faintly with a rhythm that matched the gentle hum resonating through the air. Bioluminescent veins of crystal lined the corridors, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow that danced across the floor. Strange symbols etched into the stone glowed intermittently, as though communicating in some long-forgotten language. The oppressive silence was broken only by the soft crunch of their boots against the smooth, glass-like surface beneath them. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew heavier, almost suffocating. It wasn't just physical, It felt as though the weight of countless millennia pressed down on them, whispering secrets too profound, or too dangerous, to comprehend. Kira's scanner emitted erratic beeps, struggling to process the overwhelming data streaming in. "There's so much energy here," she murmured, her brow furrowed. "It's like the entire structure is alive." "Alive," Taro echoed, his voice tinged with unease. He reached out tentatively to touch one of the glowing crystals, only to yank his hand back as it flared brightly. "Yeah, definitely not normal." Vailithra moved ahead of the group, her movements deliberate yet cautious. She paused before a towering doorway framed by spiraling glyphs that pulsed in sync with her pendant. "This is it," she said quietly, her voice tinged with reverence and fear. "The core chamber." Ryland stepped forward, peering into the dimly lit room beyond. At its center stood a pedestal, atop which rested an object unlike anything he'd seen before. It resembled a shard of pure starlight, suspended mid-air as if defying gravity. Waves of energy radiated outward, distorting the air around it. "That's what we came for?" he asked, his tone skeptical. "It's more than an object," Vailithra replied, her gaze fixed on the artifact. "It's a key. To knowledge, power, perhaps even salvation. But also destruction. My ancestors learned that lesson the hard way." Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled violently, knocking them off balance. Dust rained down from the ceiling as cracks spiderwebbed along the walls. From the shadows emerged figures, not humanoid, but amorphous shapes composed entirely of liquid metal. Their forms shifted constantly, taking on vaguely insectoid silhouettes before dissolving back into fluidity. Eyes of molten gold blinked into existence, locking onto the intruders. "What the hell are those things?" Taro shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Guardians," Vailithra hissed, unsheathing retractable blades from her forearms. "They protect the vault's secrets, at any cost." Without warning, the creatures surged forward, their movements eerily silent despite their size. Ryland raised his weapon, firing a burst of plasma that splashed harmlessly against one guardian's form. The liquid rippled briefly before reforming seamlessly. "They're impervious," he yelled, backing away. "Not entirely," Vailithra countered, darting toward the nearest guardian with blinding speed. Her blade slashed through its metallic body, causing it to shudder and split momentarily. But instead of collapsing, the fragments merged again, reforming faster than before. Kira frantically adjusted her scanner, searching for a weakness. Their composition, it's tied to the energy field surrounding the artifact. If we disrupt the source. "We don't have time for theories," Ryland snapped, narrowly dodging a tendril lashing out at him. He grabbed a fragmentation grenade from his belt and hurled it at the closest guardian. The explosion sent shockwaves through the chamber, forcing the creatures to retreat temporarily. "Now!" Kira shouted, pointing to the pedestal. "Get to the artifact." Ryland sprinted toward the shard, Vailithra close behind. As he reached out to grab it, the guardians converged, their forms merging into a single monstrous entity that loomed over them. Its molten eyes burned with fury, and tendrils extended like whips, ready to strike. "You'll never take it without activating the failsafe," Vailithra warned, positioning herself between Ryland and the creature. "Use my pendant, it's attuned to the same frequency." Ryland hesitated, glancing at the glowing crystal around her neck. "And what happens to you?" Her expression hardened, resolve replacing hesitation. "Just do it, human. Trust me, for once." With no other options, Ryland snatched the pendant from her grasp and slammed it onto the pedestal beside the shard. Instantly, the chamber erupted in a blinding flash of light. The guardians froze mid-motion, their forms destabilizing as the energy field collapsed. When the light faded, the creatures were gone, leaving only faint traces of vapor in their wake. Breathing heavily, Ryland turned to Vailithra, who slumped against the wall, visibly weakened. "Was that supposed to happen?" he asked, concern edging his voice. She managed a weak smile, her bioluminescence dimming slightly. "Depends on how you define, supposed." Then, gesturing to the shard still hovering above the pedestal, she added, "Take it." But remember, power unchecked corrupts absolutely. Choose wisely. As Rylan carefully retrieved the artifact, the vault began to shake again, more violently this time. Cracks spread rapidly across the walls, threatening to bring the entire structure down upon them. "Time to go!" Taro yelled, already heading for the exit. But as they fled, none of them noticed the faint glow emanating from the cracks, a sign that the Nexus Vault was awakening once more, its secrets far from fully revealed. Whatever they thought they had accomplished, the true consequences of their actions remained unknown, lurking just beyond the horizon like storm clouds gathering for war. The group burst out of the Nexus Vault just as the ground beneath it began to collapse, sending shockwaves rippling across the desolate moon. Dust and debris billowed into the air, blotting out the twin suns momentarily. Rylan clutched the shard tightly in one hand, its energy pulsing faintly against his palm, while Kira and Taro staggered forward, coughing from the thick cloud of particulates. Velithra brought up the rear, her movements sluggish but determined despite her obvious exhaustion. As they put distance between themselves and the crumbling ruins, Taro glanced over his shoulder, wide-eyed. Do ancient alien death traps always self-destruct like that? Or is this some kind of cosmic Murphy's Law? Kira shot him a glare, though there was no real heat behind it. Focus, Taro. We're not safe yet. She was right. Even as the dust settled, the horizon shimmered unnaturally, distorting the landscape as if reality itself were bending. From the distortion emerged shapes. Dozens of them. Sleek, insectoid drones hovered silently above the ground, their glowing eyes scanning the area with predatory precision. Behind them loomed larger figures, Zenthari warriors clad in battle armor, unmistakably loyal to General Zyrax. At their center stood Zyrax himself, his exoskeleton gleaming menacingly under the red sky. "Well, well," Zyrax growled, his voice carrying an edge of triumph. "It seems fortune favors persistence after all." Rylan stepped forward, positioning himself slightly ahead of the group. His grip tightened on the shard, though he kept it hidden for now. "You followed us here?" he asked, feigning calm even as his mind raced through possible escape routes or last stands. Zyrax sneered, his tail lashing behind him. "Not exactly." The vault's awakening sent ripples through the quantum field, a beacon impossible to ignore. "And look what I found, traitors and thieves alike." His gaze flicked to Velithra, then to Rylan. "Hand over the artifact, human, and perhaps I'll make your demise swift." Velithra straightened, her weakened state giving way to defiance. "You underestimate them, Zyrax. These humans are more resourceful than you think." "And you overestimate them," Zyrax countered, raising a clawed hand. The drones immediately surged forward, closing the gap between the two groups. "Enough talk. Surrender, or die." Before anyone could react, a deafening roar split the air. Everyone froze, turning toward the source. Rising from the jagged cliffs nearby was a massive creature unlike anything they'd ever seen. Its body resembled molten rock, veins of magma coursing beneath its semi-translucent skin. Jagged spines jutted from its back, and its maw opened wide enough to swallow a transport shuttle whole. It let out another ear-splitting roar, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. "What is that thing?" Taro stammered, taking several steps back. "A lunar drake," Velithra whispered, her tone equal parts awe and dread. "An apex predator native to this moon. And it looks hungry." The drake charged, barreling straight into the swarm of drones. Metal screeched and sparks flew as its claws tore through the machines, reducing them to scrap within seconds. The Zenthari warriors scrambled to regroup, firing concentrated blasts of energy at the beast. But the drake shrugged off their attacks, its molten hide absorbing the impact without so much as a scratch. "Now's our chance," Rylan shouted, seizing the moment. "Move!" The team bolted, weaving between the chaos erupting around them. Driven by instinct, the drake swung its massive tail, sending several Zenthari soldiers flying before turning its attention back to the remaining forces. Zyrax bellowed orders, trying to rally his troops, but panic had already set in. For once, brute strength wasn't enough to win the day. As they ran, Kira glanced back at the battlefield, her expression torn. "Shouldn't we help them?" I mean, those drones are tearing Zyrax's forces apart. Help who, exactly? Rylan shot back, not slowing down. Zyrax would have killed us without hesitation. Besides, that Drake isn't our problem. No, Velathra interjected, her voice strained. But if it turns its attention to us next, we won't survive either. Sure enough, the Drake paused mid-rampage, its glowing eyes locking onto the fleeing group. With a guttural snarl, it bounded after them, moving faster than something of its size should have been capable of. Rocks crumbled beneath its weight, creating a deadly trail of destruction in its wake. Great, Taro muttered, ducking as a chunk of debris sailed past his head. First killer robots, now Godzilla Jr. What's next, space sharks? Don't jinx us. Kira snapped, though she couldn't suppress a nervous laugh. Ahead, the terrain shifted dramatically, revealing a network of deep crevasses cutting through the moon's surface. Rylan skidded to a halt at the edge of one such chasm, quickly assessing their options. We can use these to lose it, he called out, pointing to a narrow ledge winding along the cliffside below. Stay close and don't look down. Without waiting for confirmation, he leapt onto the ledge, trusting the others to follow. One by one, they descended, clinging to the jagged walls as the Drake roared above, searching for them. Its massive form cast a shadow over the canyon, forcing them to move faster. Each step felt precarious, the brittle rock threatening to give way at any moment. Halfway across, Velathra faltered, her strength finally failing her. She slipped, catching herself just in time, but the movement dislodged a cascade of rocks that tumbled into the abyss below. The Drake zeroed in on the noise, swinging its head down to peer into the crevasse. Keep moving, Rylan urged, grabbing her arm to steady her. We're almost there. At the end of the ledge, the path widened into a natural cave carved into the cliffside. They dove inside just as the Drake slammed its claws into the entrance, narrowly missing them. The impact shook the cavern, causing stalactites to rain down like daggers. Inside, the air was cool and damp, offering a brief reprieve from the chaos outside. For a moment, they simply caught their breath, leaning against the rocky walls. Then Kira broke the silence. Okay, seriously, what do we do now? That thing isn't going anywhere. Velathra pushed herself upright, her posture stiff but resolute. We fight fire with fire. Everyone turned to look at her, confusion written plainly on their faces. Care to elaborate? Rylan asked warily. She held out her hand, gesturing to the shard still clutched in his grasp. That artifact isn't just a key, it's a weapon. Activate it, and we might stand a chance. Rylan hesitated, weighing the risks. And if it kills us instead? Velathra met his gaze squarely, her multifaceted eyes reflecting determination and resignation. Then dying together is better than being hunted down separately. The words hung heavy in the air, leaving no room for argument. Slowly, Rylan nodded, raising the shard aloft. As he did, the chamber lit up with an ethereal glow, the crystalline veins embedded in the walls responding to its presence. Energy coursed through the shard, resonating with the same frequency that powered the Nexus Vault and the Drake outside. Weapons ready, Rylan ordered, gripping the shard tighter. Let's finish this. Together, they stepped back into the fray, facing the monstrous predator head-on. The Drake reared back, preparing to strike, but this time, they weren't running. This time, they fought back, channeling the raw power of the artifact into a desperate bid for survival. Sparks flew, roars echoed, and the fate of their unlikely alliance hung precariously in the balance. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: none of them would emerge unchanged. The battle against the lunar Drake was nothing short of chaos. The artifact's energy pulsed wildly in Rylan's hands, its power surging through him like a live current. He could feel it responding to his thoughts, amplifying his intentions but also threatening to overwhelm him. With every ounce of focus, he directed its energy toward the beast, unleashing bursts of radiant light that crackled and sizzled against its molten hide. Velathra fought alongside him with equal ferocity, her blades flashing as she darted around the Drake's legs, striking at weak points beneath its armored spines. Her movements were calculated yet desperate, each strike fueled by centuries of combat training, and the weight of knowing this might be her final stand. Kira and Taro provided support from a distance, using their plasma rifles to target the creature's glowing eyes, which seemed to be the only vulnerable part of its massive form. The drake roared in fury, shaking off their attacks with terrifying ease. It swung its tail like a wrecking ball, forcing them to scatter. Rocks shattered under its assault, sending shards flying in all directions. One particularly vicious swipe sent Rylan sprawling backward, nearly losing his grip on the shard. Pain shot through his side where he'd hit the ground, but he gritted his teeth and pushed himself up. They couldn't afford to falter now. Focus the energy. Vailithra shouted over the din, her voice cutting through the cacophony. You need to overload its core. Rylan blinked, momentarily confused. It's what? The magma veins, she clarified, pointing to the fiery channels coursing across the drake's body. They're conduits for its life force. If you channel enough energy into them, it'll destabilize. Understanding dawned on him. Without hesitation, Rylan raised the shard again, pouring every bit of concentration into controlling its raw power. The others rallied around him, forming a protective circle as they kept the drake at bay. Kira fired rapid shots to distract it while Taro hurled EMP grenades to slow its movements. Vailithra danced between strikes, buying precious seconds for Rylan to aim. Finally, when the moment felt right, Rylan unleashed the shard's full potential. A beam of concentrated energy erupted from the artifact, striking the largest magma vein along the drake's flank. The creature let out an ear-splitting screech, thrashing violently as its fiery insides began to destabilize. The ground trembled beneath their feet as waves of heat radiated outward, forcing them to shield their faces. Fall back! Rylan yelled, stumbling backward as the drake convulsed. Its body glowed brighter and brighter, until it became a blinding orb of light. Then, with one last deafening roar, it exploded in a spectacular burst of magma and ash, raining fire onto the canyon below. When the dust settled, silence fell over the battlefield. The team stood amidst the wreckage, battered but alive. Rylan dropped to one knee, exhausted, the shard still clutched tightly in his hand. Its glow had dimmed significantly, as if drained from the effort. Vailithra approached cautiously, her expression unreadable. You did it, she said softly, her tone carrying a mix of awe and relief. Against all odds, you actually did it. Rylan managed a weak chuckle, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, well, don't get used to me saving your life. This hero gig isn't exactly my style. Her mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement, or gratitude. For once, there was no sarcasm in her reply. Perhaps not. But humanity may yet prove itself worthy of survival after all. As the adrenaline faded, reality began to sink in. Zyrax and his forces were nowhere to be seen, likely retreating after witnessing the destruction of both the Nexus Vault and the Lunar Drake. Whether they would regroup or abandon their pursuit remained uncertain, but for now, the immediate threat was gone. Kira leaned heavily against Taro, who looked equally spent. So, what happens next? She asked, her voice tinged with exhaustion and curiosity. Rylan glanced at the shard, then at Vailithra. We figure out how to use this thing responsibly. And maybe, just maybe, we find a way to keep people like Zyrax from abusing it. Vailithra nodded slowly, her gaze distant. Knowledge is neither good nor evil. It is the wielder who determines its legacy. With that, the unlikely alliance turned away from the ruins and began the long journey back to their ship. The red suns dipped lower on the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the barren landscape. Though scars remained, both physical and emotional, they carried with them a newfound sense of purpose. For Rylan and his crew, the mission had always been about protecting humanity. For Vailithra, it had been about reclaiming her dignity and proving her worth. Together, they had forged something greater, a fragile bond built on trust, sacrifice, and shared resilience. As they disappeared into the distance, the moon bore witness to their story, a tale of survival, redemption, and hope amid the stars.